time the team at Capable decided to have this webinar, which I think is a very great initiative. Apart from whatever was read on my CV, I'm always a constant learner, and that's why I think we're here. So I'm looking forward to also learning from you guys and hearing from you on the different means that I may not have highlighted from a presentation. How do you think we can stay safe? So allow me to just share my screen. Like I said, I will make this a bit brief with the intent of just touching on the different trends that we can use to protect ourselves. So I don't know, maybe you can just confirm from your end if my screen is visible.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you for that. So now, yeah, like I said, cybersecurity trends, protecting your data and privacy. So cybersecurity, what is it? I mean, this is a term that is usually thrown around. We just hear there's been a hack, there's been a breach, there's been this, there's been that all over the internet. But what exactly is cybersecurity? So this basically refers to any technology, measure, or practice for preventing cyber attacks or mitigating their impact. Remember, we are not, as security enthusiasts, we're not always on the back foot trying to curb the threat once they've impacted the organization. We're also looking at means and ways of how to be 5 steps ahead of the threat actors. So cybersecurity in general is a way of mitigating and preventing cyber attacks before they happen. Cybersec also aims to protect individuals and organizations, systems, applications, computing devices, sensitive data, and financial assets. Remember, for a cyber attack to happen, there must be an individual who is being compromised on the other end. So it's not always about our machines, it's also about you, the end user of the internet. Think of yourself as a user of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever social media app you use. If your data is out there in public, then you are vulnerable and you are exposed. So it's not always about the big companies and how much affected they are financially. At the end of the day, it trickles down to you, the user. How safe and secure are you while surfing the internet? Before I continue, please feel free to interrupt.
Geoffrey to come.
Pardon, is someone speaking?
Sorry for that. I think I've muted the person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so I feel free to interject and ask questions as we move along, kindly. So we move on to the principles of cybersecurity. For us, before we get to a point where we call ourselves cybersecurity practitioners, what are the principles that we must adhere to in order to protect ourselves and others who are reliant on our skills? So the basic principles we look at are 3: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We refer to them collectively as the CIA triad. So one cannot coexist without each other. It's a symbiotic type of relationship, okay? So every element of the information security program must be designed to implement one or more of these principles. Remember, think of companies that are handling data. There's the aspect of confidentiality. Imagine if your bank would publicly release information about you. You're walking into a bank and they start announcing that user A has X amount in their bank account, their PIN is 123. The whole aspect of confidentiality has been thrown out the window. And I want us to look at each of the CIA triad elements individually. So we start with confidentiality. The whole purpose of confidentiality is to keep personal information private. That's why it's referred to as personal, okay? Things like in a local setup, your KRA PIN, your bank account number, these are not things that you would willingly and openly just give to anyone and everyone, right? You try as much as possible to keep this data and information private to you and only the relevant parties. So the purpose of confidentiality in the triad is to ensure that it is visible and accessible only to those who own it or need it to perform their organizational functions. So it does not make sense for you to go register. Maybe you're going into an institution and you're required to give out some information, maybe just for inquiries, for instance, a school. It does not make sense for them to actually ask you for details like your KRA PIN, right? So the only time you might, disclose such sensitive information is in a banking setup, for instance. So that's the whole point of confidentiality. Is my information private and only visible to the relevant authorities who might need it to perform their duties better? The other aspect of the triad is integrity. Is the data that we are sharing over the internet accurate and reliable? And is it modified incorrectly, whether accidentally or maliciously? More often than not, think of integrity as, I don't know how many of you back in the day played the game Broken Telephone. So with the Broken Telephone as a game, you whisper a word or a sentence to one individual at the beginning of a room, and at the end of the room, if you're having like 10 people in the room, you're expecting to get the same information passed around to you. So if you say the word hello, my name is Nigel, you're expecting to hear the same information from the 10th person. But more often than not, integrity is usually compromised when we are dealing with our public information over the internet. So, as security enthusiasts, how can we keep integrity intact while communicating over the internet? And we'll come to look at some of these means later on in this presentation. One of the last elements of the CIA triad is availability. This is the protection of a system's ability to make software systems and data fully available when a user needs it or at a specified time. Picture yourself, maybe you've gone out to have a good time with your friends in the evening, and you are unable to maybe access resources like maybe your bank account. Banking systems are designed in a way that they're operational 24/7. So imagine a scenario where banks are only operational between working hours, normal working hours, 8 to 5. You see, the whole purpose of availability is thrown out the window. So these are some of the things we try and ensure that threat actors do not come and compromise availability of some of this information, regardless of which sector we are dealing with.
Excuse me, Nigel.
Yes.
Your slides are not moving. You are still on slide 1.
Oh, sorry for that. Let me just try this again. So just confirm to me that we are on the data privacy slide.
Yes, we are there.
Okay, so just to take you back.
And is there a way you can make it a slideshow, or we continue the way it is?
I thought it was in slideshow mode. Let me just see. Still not a slideshow?
No, not yet.
Okay, just give me 1 second to try and fix that. Sorry for that, guys. So you'll confirm to me once I've started presenting whether it's a slideshow or not.
Okay, not a problem.
So I don't know, is it in slideshow mode?
No, not yet, but I think you can continue.
Okay,
It's not in
we on the
slideshow.
principle.
You can click the X on the slide transition side. The tools on your right, the X, so that at least that's at least, and maybe on the slides part also, so that we just have the.
I'm trying to confirm this event.
There is that X on top in the slides part.
So this will actually close the document. So I don't know.
Oh, okay. No, not that one. There's the other one. Open your slide 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, at least that's okay. So you.
So.
Yeah. So you just keep moving to the next slide. With respect to the content that you're sharing at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just 1 minute. Sorry for that, guys. Let me just fix this. Yeah, so I think I'll have to include this so that I can be able to navigate. So sorry for that. Let me just make it full screen for you. So yeah, as I was saying, we were the principles of cybersecurity, the CIA triad. This is what I was talking about before the slideshow ended. Sorry for that. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability. How can we as security enthusiasts and experts actually focus on the same? So again, we are looking at data privacy. Remember, at the end of the day, we are more concerned with data as opposed to any other form of communication over the internet. As it stands to us, our main quote unquote gold to those of us who are in the IT industry is data. Reason being, data is now more sensitive and now more expensive on the market. If you are to compare it with things like gold, silver, oil, guys are now shifting their focus towards data. How can we collect as much data as possible to help our organizations run more efficiently and more smoothly? So data privacy as a whole is the protection of personal data from those who should not have access to it, and the ability of individuals to determine who can access their personal information. A data subject typically will refer to any individual person who can identify directly or indirectly when identifiers such as a name, ID number, location, and location data. These are just terms, basic terms when we're dealing with data privacy. So I'll skim through them. Data controller, it determines the purposes for which and by the means by which personal data is processed. And finally, a data processor processes personal data only on behalf of the controller. So now we look at the principles of data privacy. Remember, I said that your data is crucial. Why? Picture a scenario where, for example, the breach that was experienced by Naivas Group recently. They had most of their information leaked out, information of their suppliers, employees, personal information like their emails, phone numbers, and what have you. Such information can actually be crucial to myself as a threat actor when I'm trying to do things like credential perform malicious acts such as perform malicious acts such as identity theft. With information, if I have the data of all of you who are joined here on this Zoom call, I can actually perform so much identity theft to a point where I have multiple aliases and I can perform acts such as taking loans from banks. Imagine a scenario where at the end of the month you're being fined for not paying up your loan, but to the best of your memory you have no such loan. So this is why data privacy is key to us as individuals. So principles of data privacy: lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. Any processing of personal data should be lawful and fair. When you are joining this Zoom call, there are terms and conditions that were provided by both Zoom and Capable as they were creating this Zoom link. One of them was that whatever information you share to be able to join, your name and your email, shall not be shared outside the organization that is responsible for this webinar. So that's the whole aspect of transparency. Purpose limitation: personal data should only be collected for specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes, and not further processed in a manner that is incompatible. If I give you my email and my full names so that you can register an account for me under Capable, will I now then start getting spam emails from other marketing agencies? Those are the questions you should be asking people who are collecting your data. How well have you limited my data usage? Okay. Data minimization: processing of personal data must be adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary in relation to purposes of which they are processed. So don't take my data saying that you're performing a survey on how often I use my email account, But again, I'm finding myself performing surveys of maybe I don't know what kind of fruit do I like, or what event do I think is more enticing. So this is the whole point of data minimization. Keep my data to the usage of whatever you had specified in the first place. And again, accuracy. Controllers must ensure that personal data are accurate and, where necessary, kept up to date, taking every action to ensure that personal data is not inaccurate. Sorry. So with accuracy, we are looking at if I have provided information, for example, government agencies like whoever Huduma Center, they normally process your ID and other personal information. When we get to the digital age where we are using one unified card, I think they were looking to launch Maisha card. They need one key area that they are looking at in terms of data privacy is accuracy. Don't take my name and store and record my location with that of another individual, okay? So that it's easier for them to track and trace should anything happen to me. Another principle of data privacy, storage limitation. Personal data should only be kept in a form which permits identification for as long as it is necessary. When you are walking into buildings and you have to actually physically register yourself, how long do these buildings keep your data? Okay, some of these books are actually stored for long in physical storage locations, and this poses a risk to you and to me and also to the organization, because any malicious actor can actually come in and take these books, and with all of that information, like I said, identity theft is easier and very much possible. For the organization side of things, if you're storing my data, how long are you storing it for? When you get a data breach and I shared my data with you 15 years ago, you see that poses a threat to you in the sense that you now have to actually pay hefty fines because of your poor data privacy methods. Again, back to the CIA triad, we're looking at integrity and confidentiality of data privacy. Personal data should be processed in a manner that ensures appropriate security and confidentiality of the personal data. Am I going to start receiving calls in the middle of the night from different people who gained my data from you? Okay, or once I give you my information, I can rest well assured that my data will only be with you for the period of time that you intend to use it. Finally, we are looking at accountability. The controller is responsible for and must be able to demonstrate their compliance with all the above named principles of data protection. Let me not come to capable one time, to ask what did you do with my data, and no one can explain to me what exactly happened. That's why such organizations that are actually taking in large amounts of data have processes in place to show you a record of how they are using your data throughout the process. So cybersecurity and data privacy. Before I continue, any question or clarification from the audience?
Yes, we have a question here.
Okay.
Augustine is asking, is the government allowed to eavesdrop in a private conversation, and where does it draw the line?
Okay, so that's a good question. Is the government allowed to eavesdrop on a conversation, and where do they draw the line? From the experience I've had, especially with counterterrorism units, there is a huge need for them to actually conduct such activities like eavesdropping, for them to ascertain whether or not you are a person of malicious intent towards the nation and towards the country. So this is why they actually need to perform activities like eavesdropping. But to the general public, as far as I'm concerned, it is a breach of your data privacy to have them, install, like they are giving us there's a parliamentary act that was seeking to push KRA to actually install droppers or listeners within our devices and monitor our activities. So as far as I'm concerned, that is to an extent a breach of our data privacy. I hope I've answered the question, Augustine. And then is there any other question?
No, we don't have any other question as of now. But I can see a few guys have raised their hands. Alex Karaoke, kindly unmute and ask your question. I think Alex is not around. Mutai Kevin, kindly unmute and ask your question.
And thank you for the presentation. I just want to inquire, we have in government institution like the hospital. Suppose a patient wants his information to be deleted and thereafter or later came and inquire, or because at times we have cases in the court whereby the patient is claiming that
Excuse,
was
just
treated.
hold a minute.
Okay.
Whoever is speaking without muting their mics, kindly check your device and mute. Thank you. Now you can continue with the question.
And I was elaborating this scenario whereby at times we have clients in the, let's say, for example, the hospital, and if he or she wears a right for his data to be deleted or to be stored for a short time, then maybe in a 1 year or later, he or she can have a case in a court and they want information to be presented. I think it is technical, it will interfere with the, for the data privacy or data handlers, like the institution like such. How can we mitigate such scenario?
I'm sorry, Mr. Kevin. I don't think I got your question right. Are you asking whether or not you have the right to actually ask for your data to be deleted once you've provided it to different institutions? And if you can expand on the court case that you've just mentioned.
Maybe during the registration time, you are capturing the information. And then thereafter, you might be asked to present the same information, maybe in court issues. How can we mitigate that as data handlers?
Okay, I'm trying to get your question. How can you mitigate data being lost or stolen when you are dealing with a court case? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, so then my question to you would be, how are you collecting this data and how are you using it throughout the court case? You see, there's a Data Protection Act that has a provision on that, on how you're actually supposed to handle this data from start to finish. So how are you handling this data? Maybe this can be a rhetoric question, don't have to share personal information, but how are you collecting and handling this data throughout the court case? Case in point, from my general understanding of the law, anything that has been attained as evidence through the legal means, maybe you actually forced entry for you to gain unauthorized entry for in a criminal's house for you to gain possible evidence. You see that data cannot be presented in a court of law. Again, if you don't delete this data after when the subject requests for deletion of the data, again you're in violation of the Data Provision Act. And I think I'll mention it later on in the presentation. I don't know if I've tackled your question.
Hello. I just wanted to get a clarification on the data privacy, because the patients we are handling, let's say, for example, in our hospitals, government hospitals, at times we register the patients for purpose of history taking, and when they come back also for revisit, they will be able to get the information from the previous day. So when we handle the information and then they ask for data handlers, maybe their information to be deleted, and maybe we can encounter, at times we encounter court cases ordering for the data to be presented. and maybe the person who are the owner of the data had requested previously that his or data be deleted.
Okay, I think I've understood your question. So there's two sides of the coin to this. One, yes, I have the right to ask for my data to be deleted, but two, somewhere along the road, you require some evidence, or some evidence is required from me as a data handler in regards to my case, but yet you've already deleted this data. So the only straightforward way is to approach this is that yes, you've complied with the law to delete the data as requested by the person. Again, you will be at a crossroads trying to present evidence, yet you do not have this data, right? So it all boils down to how are you viewing the Data Protection Act, because like in everything, there are ways and means that you can navigate. There's a certain amount of data that you can delete and still be left with some data that can still count for evidence in a court of law should you require it down the road.
Yes, you are right. You are right. That is the point.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't know if there's any other question.
Yes, let me read the question here from the chat. Someone is asking you to shed light on the hack that occurred on eCitizen. Maybe you can say how they did it and what the government did to make sure that does not happen again.
Okay, so for eCitizen, I believe whoever is asked that question is actually referring to the recent attack that we are facing from Anonymous Sudan. And if that is the case, if you are keenly following the attack, it was not necessarily a hack that led to loss of information. It was actually a DDoS attack. DDoS meaning distributed denial of service. So basically, in a nutshell, DDoS attack is an attack that actually removes or eliminates access to key infrastructure. Case in point, for the eCitizen attack, whatever the attackers or the malicious actors did was flood the network with so many requests up until the request handler was unable to provide feedback of the same. So if you noticed during that time of attack, you're getting an error. I think it was server down or something like that. I can't remember the exact error message that was popping up. But for the eCitizen attack, it was a DDoS attack that actually led to disruption of services. And as far as I'm concerned, I didn't follow up even afterwards, but I did not see any reports of any loss of data.
That's a good question. Another one is asking, in a scenario whereby a firm handles their data and then the firm gets hacked, and then the firm is asked to pay ransom, and then they don't. What steps will the government take, and how will the affected entities be affected?
That's a very good question. So in the case of a ransomware attack, the first thing that you're normally advised by any legal body or legal entity, do not pay the ransomware. Why are we saying this? The moment you are paying ransomware, you're giving confidence in other threat actors that yes, once you perform these malicious acts, there's actually reward to this risk. Okay, so what we normally advise is instead refer, or rather resort to your backups. For anyone who's handling data and sensitive information, you ought to have backups and backups to your backups, so that when the main server is affected, for example, try as much as possible to restore normalcy to your company or organization using the backups. Then from there, try and see how any leaked information over the internet, how can you recover? And again, you're also dealing with clients. How can you maintain the rapport that you have with your clients? Again, you also have to follow the chain of command when this happens. Report to your financiers, customers, and government that you have been hacked, so that these people and anyone else involved within the organization is always aware of what is going on and can see the steps that you're taking to mitigate such a breach. Not sure if I've answered that question to your satisfaction.
Yes, I think you've answered that very, very well. And another question I can see here. Someone is asking if you ask an organization to delete your data and then they don't delete it, is it illegal?
Yes, following the laws that have been put in place, this is illegal simply because the Data Provision Act outlines on how you want your data to be processed. So in a shortened version, yes, it is illegal.
Okay, thank you. You can carry on.
Okay, thank you for that. So I will resume sharing. So yeah, cybersecurity and data privacy. In case you're not seeing my slides, you'll just inform me. Cybersecurity and data privacy. As the world becomes more and more connected, the need to secure data has become paramount. According to IBM, the average cost of data breach is $4.24 million. So this is just an average estimated cost, but it could be higher. A report from IBM. Another report has revealed that Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya are facing the highest online threats in the African continent. This is according to Kaspersky, the antivirus provider. I think you've all interacted with it at one point or the another. Kenya's losses to cyber criminals reached 3.6 billion US dollars, 3.6 billion, sorry, in 2022. So as you can see, these losses, you might think it's just your name and your email that is being shared out there illegally. In real sense, the actual losses that you are being incurred by these data handlers whenever they incur, they incur challenges or hacks to their data storages. So types of cybersecurity threats, what are we facing on a day-to-day, and what is new and coming, and what should we be on the lookout for? Phishing. So phishing has different forms. We have vishing, smishing, whaling, and spear phishing. I will give breakdowns of each. I'll try to give breakdowns of each. So for phishing, we are looking at targeted campaigns. Think of yourself when you're going to fish with a hook and a line. Normally you're targeting, you cannot capture multiple fish at once. So for phishing is the same. We have a targeted attack. If I know that Moses is the manager at Capable and he has the power to approve or authorize payments, what I will do, I will send him, mostly this type of attack is done through emails, where you're sending an email with a malicious link or rather a contaminated link that contains a virus of any sort that can then infect the party that receives the email on clicking the link. So normally, if you are a frequent user of Gmail, you will agree to the fact that when someone sends you a document, when the internet is down, you'll notice that a yellow alert that will tell you virus scanners are down, proceed with caution in opening this document. The reason why Gmail put that into place is because the number of phishing attacks that have been reported globally is always on the rise. So this is one area you need to look at. Who am I receiving the email from? Is it a trusted user? For example, if my email is nigel@123.com, check for spellings in the email, email of the sender. Normally, people try to disguise some small things as the email address can be changed to nigel@124.com. To a naked eye and to someone who's in a hurry, this might not, automatically pop up and stand out. So these are some of the things you should be looking at whenever you're opening emails, especially in a corporate environment. For malware is just short form for malicious software. With malware, we are trying to take over the system. Forms of malware include Trojans, worms, and botnets. So I'll explain a Trojan. If you remember the story of Troy back in the day, I think when we were young, we all had this story. With Trojans, what you're doing, we are disguising our malicious software or our malware to seem as legitimate as possible to the end user. Okay. In the background, we have processes that are running that will eventually infect you, my target. For botnets and even worms, when you're thinking of botnets, you can think of infected computers that are actually used to perform these attacks, malware attacks. Ransomware, like we said, someone actually mentioned, takeover of a system with the end result of me gaining financial incentives from you. So if you want me to open up your system after I'm done, after taking over, you actually have to pay a ransom to whatever account I'll tell you. An example that you can look at, maybe for those who are interested during their free time, try and look at groups like Lapsus, that is LAPSUS. They are very famous for ransomware attacks. They targeted Uber and Google, I think within this year. DOS and DDoS. DOS is distributed denial of service. DOS is denial of service. DDoS is distributed denial of service. I'm just for mentioning it. I am denying you access to services that you regularly access. Think of it as walking into a room and the door is locked. That's a denial of service. Okay. But in this case, in our context as cybersecurity experts, what services are we denying? Items like accessing public websites. If you're trying to access eCitizen, for instance, a DOS attack can be successful. The only difference here is the mode of delivery of the attack. For a DDoS, distributed is the keyword here. For if I am the attacker, I am infecting hundreds of thousands of machines and turning them into what we refer to as zombies. And then I'm instructing these machines, look, I want to cause disruption of services to the eCitizen platform. So flood the eCitizen platform with requests. A request typically is for when you log on to the eCitizen, one of you might be trying to go to the passport section, another NTSA. That is a request. So with a DDoS, I'm using these zombie machines to send multiple requests, repeated requests to the service provider until it cannot handle the requests. Identity theft, like what I said, taking your name and your email and your KRA PIN, formulating a whole new identity. So I could be using my name with your KRA PIN to create a whole new identity and then proceed to perform malicious acts. Social engineering, this is another great form of attack. If you look at, I don't know how many of you have followed the MGM attack that recently happened in America, in Las Vegas casinos. It was a social engineering attack. So for social engineering, cybersecurity malicious actors, malicious actors in the cyber world, all they're trying to do is exploit the weakest link in cybersecurity, that is the human. More often than not, the cases that we experience as cybersecurity defenders or blue teamers is social engineering attacks that are targeted at personnel working in companies. Like I said, the MGM hack, you can actually look it up later on. This is a group of, an organization that handles a number of casinos in America. So with this attack, all that it took for the hackers was a 10-minute phone call with someone at the front desk. So imagine your company or organization, whoever sits at the front desk, a lady or a gentleman, the receptionist there, all it took was 10 minutes to talk with them on phone and actually coerce them into or trick them into giving me valuable credentials regarding to the company. Cyberbullying, I think we've experienced this. If you're a fan of Twitter or a regular user of Twitter, you encounter various forms of cyberbullying once in a while. You post a photo, you're told, hey, you don't scare us with that photo, something like that. Man in the middle attack. With a man in the middle or MITM, what I'm doing is think of it as someone standing in between you and someone you're sending a text to. So if you're sending a text, for example, to your brother, I am the man in the middle. I'm standing in between you and your brother, intercepting the traffic and the communication that you're sending to him. Then from there, I'm able to decide, do I want to alter this communication? So maybe you're telling your brother, send me money, send me 2,000 shillings. But what I'll do is intercept that traffic and send the end message to be send me 2,000 shillings to this number. So I'm changing whatever final number that you had provided to be a number that will favor me. Then finally, another form of attack, injection attacks or SQL attacks. Here we're looking at exploiting databases, corrupting the database and trying to get as much information from whichever database you're looking to exploit. I don't know if there's any question on the types of threats before I proceed.
No, But we have a question here. An auditor is asking, can you spare some time and talk about data protection requirements? What should I, as an auditor, consider while auditing the data protection controls of various organizations? So I think he's an auditor. He goes to many organizations. So how can he be equipped with the knowledge of data protection while doing that?
Okay, so the first thing I'll direct you to, and I think it's what you're tackling here, is ensuring the ways of ensuring data privacy. One, how are you handling this data? If the data that you're auditing is in digital form, use multi-factor authentication to secure your data by requiring users to provide at least 2 forms of authentication. Think of this when you're logging into Twitter, for instance. Normally, the 2-factor authentication method will be your password, then an OTP sent to your phone, a one-time password, normally a code, a series of numbers. When you're handling such company data, try and use as much security as possible. Multi-factor authentication can be a good way, such that only you, the auditor, at that specific time, plus the relevant authorities from the organization are accessing this data. Also, depending on the company, try and look at industry-specific compliance. We have like the ISO standards, ISO 27001, the HIPAA, and PCI DSS. So PCI DSS normally deals with data protection and data privacy for credit card suppliers. So whenever you're transacting over the internet and you're required to actually provide your Visa card numbers, there's a compliance act that is in between there that ensures that you are safe over the internet. So when you are going to different firms, try and check on the industry-specific compliance that is required by that industry. Another way that maybe you can look at is data masking. Encrypt data so that unauthorized viewers cannot determine what exactly is happening. With encryption, only if I have the either the private or public key. This is another whole other area on encryption. But you're looking at only the end user who is authorized and verified can access this data. A common example of encryption, think of when people are actually speaking in their native language. So you're in an environment, for example, with the youth nowadays, Sheng can be somehow classified as encryption. If I'm talking about someone who's seated next to me and I can clearly tell they do not understand Sheng, what I will do is try and mask or hide my communication by speaking in forms that they will not understand. So something as simple as hi, I'll say niaje, that's one way. So try and look at how you can perform data masking when you're auditing this data and transmitting it to your colleagues who are also doing the same. Again, manage data access. Controlling confidentiality is about controlling who has access to data. So ensure that access is only authorized and granted to those who have need to know. This will go a long way limiting unnecessary exposure. Case in point, when you're working at auditing or looking at a banking organization, the cashier or rather the teller who is handling your information at that particular time as they're serving you is not supposed to be sharing that same information with someone who's maybe providing services like food delivery. You get who has access to the data rooms. Is it anyone and everyone who walks into that building has a way of finding out what goes on behind those doors? Again, physically secure devices and paper documents. Before I continue, I don't know if I'm answering, addressing the question, whoever addressed that question. Maybe they can just comment. Okay, so as they wait for them to comment, another way of ensuring data privacy, physically secure devices and paper documents. A lot of organizations are heavily reliant on paper trails. So control access to data includes controlling access to all kinds, both digital and physical. Is there a way you lock up the rooms that are storing this data when you are doing your audits, for instance? Or simply because your audit team is around, the doors are left open 24/7. Think of it this way: when maybe back in high school, I think a couple of cases that I had, someone can actually go and get the stamp of a school, you know, affect my result slip, and the secretary has stepped out for lunch. So I step into the office, stamp my fake result slip, and you know, proceed on. So is this happening in a corporate level? Can I come in when we're performing audits? Can I come in and you know, tear off some pages of some books, maybe ledgers or whatever? So yeah, physically secure these devices that are storing your data, from computers to actual physical drawers. Then securely dispose of data, devices, and paper records. When data is no longer necessary, it must be disposed appropriately. Sensitive data as ID numbers must be securely erased to ensure that it cannot be recovered or misused. Think of this angle. Whenever you're going into a building, they actually write down your ID number, right? Physically write down your ID number, maybe in a black book or whatever. How sure are you that at the end of the day, when someone is going to keep that book away, they do not tear a page or two and now start, you know, making phone calls to the numbers and telling them, look, you actually have to pay X amount or I release the information. So as an auditor, how are you disposing this data once you are done? Things like shredding of paper documents that are no longer being used. No, more often than not, when we are done with receipts or information on paper that can potentially cause harm to us, all we do is just fold it and throw it into the bin. You know, the most appropriate way of disposing of such data on paper is actually shredding. Again, devices that are no longer in use should be destroyed or securely erased to ensure that previous contents cannot be recovered and misused. When you are done completely, when you're finally done with handling information on a machine, maybe you're performing a forensics investigation, have you erased the data that maybe is no longer needed from the user's end? Again, ways of protecting oneself. At the end of the day, it's not always about organizations. It boils down to you and I. If you are secure, your organization is secure. But if a phishing attack happens and you are targeted and successfully attacked, then the whole organization is at threat. So how do we protect ourselves? One, keep your computers and mobile devices up to date. This will ensure that you have the latest security patches on your software. If you are using a Windows machine, this can be something as simple as whenever Windows prompts you for an update, kindly do not ignore that message. Try as much as possible to schedule it at a time that you will be free. The reason why Windows does this is because of, at times, zero-day attacks that happen to machines and software. They have noticed that there's a loophole within the system, and they immediately send out a patch. Set strong passwords. I think this is one of the areas that so many people are affected by. As a whole admin of an organization, your username cannot be admin and your password be admin123. A very basic password, and will take hackers or attackers very minimal time to break into your system. One way you can look at how strong your password is, try different applications like let me just present this to you so that you can see. I don't know if you are seeing my browser. Are you able to see my browser?
Not really.
Pardon?
I'm unable to see.
So if you are able to see my browser, just confirm. I'm trying to display this page here.
Yes,
I
it's
think
now
I can
possible.
see.
Pardon?
Yes, you can see.
Okay, so thank you for that. So on the issue of password security, pages like this will be able to tell you how strong your password is. So how secure is my password? Let's do admin123. As you can see, it will take a computer about 1 minute to crack your password. Whenever I'm performing, vulnerability assessments and penetration tests on systems, I do not manually start guessing passwords. No, there are things. we are using word lists when we are performing brute force attacks to try and guess your password. So a computer would only take 1 minute for it to guess and accurately get your password. So when it comes to password security, try as much as possible to have strong passwords. And again, how often are you changing your passwords? You know, are you only changing your passwords after every maybe 9 months, which is not the case? You should be changing your password every 90 days. A way that I advise people is every time you're logging on into a website or any site that requires a password, if you cannot remember the password, don't start and try guessing. Just click on forgot password. That will ensure that every time you're changing your password to something stronger and enabling you to stay up to date with password security. Again, watch out for phishing scams. Do not click on suspicious emails or links. Yes, your boss might be sending you an email, but why is your boss telling you to verify finances if you are in the marketing department? Okay, check on the email header. Is this really coming from my boss, or is this a phishing campaign? Keep personal information personal. Limit what you share online. Okay. Case in point, when I think we've seen this. This is more on physical security and not on cyber security. But we've seen cases of individuals actually getting mugged or stolen from, or even getting killed, sharing too much information out there. Okay. On an aspect of cyber security, when you're taking those photos at work, trying to update this my new place of work and whatnot, you have your badge on with you. If I'm able to see that badge, then I can be able to easily fake your card and create a fake identity, and that will give me unlimited access to a company. So when you're posting online, try as much as possible to keep personal information out of whatever you're posting about. So, secure your internet connection. Please, I don't know how much you can emphasize on this. Avoid public Wi-Fi. Okay. More often than not, this Wi-Fi is unsecured, and malicious actors actually just go and try and eavesdrop on this network and see how much information they can get. For instance, airports, coffee places, and what have you. That Wi-Fi is not the most secure, if I may put it that way. So avoid public Wi-Fi. You are better off hotspotting yourself to do whatever work you're trying to do. Shop safely. Always ensure the sites you visit are secure. You are shopping on Jumia. Have you verified that this is the actual Jumia, or is it someone who sent you a link to tell you check out this item, and you just click on it without verifying, and now you find yourself, being tracked all over the internet by this threat actor. Again, read the site's privacy policies. I'm pretty sure most of you do not, read the terms and conditions that are provided in a site, right? All you do is click on I agree. If you look at, for example, the policy provided by social media apps, some of them actually are an invasion of your privacy. So try and, as much as possible, to read the privacy policies. As I wind up, laws that govern the cybersecurity and data privacy space, you can try and look at this. They are a bit lengthy, but you can try and see where they apply in your different sectors of work. Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act of 2018. This act identifies types of crimes, mentions the penalties of the crimes. So for different crimes committed by a computer, there is a penalty attached to it. Go and see what happens. Data Privacy Act of 2019 talks about the Data Protection Office, establishment and power and mandate. So the current DCO, that is Immaculate Kasait, serving a 6-year term that is non-renewable. The Data Privacy Act outlines such roles, and the role of the DCO, Data Commissioner. The rights of a data subject, for whoever was asking on how to go about your deletion of data, you can actually look at the Data Privacy Act, and penalties in case data privacy is breached. A breach of data privacy, you can think of the recent case of Casavera Lounge. I think they are fined around 1.8 million because they violated this Privacy Act. So yes, the laws are in place. We just have to know which ones are for us and which ones we should adhere to avoid finding ourselves on the wrong arm of the law. Thank you so much for your time, guys. That was the end of my presentation. I'm now open to questions from the audience.
Thank you so much for such an interesting session. I can see some people have raised their hands. Alex Karaoke, kindly unmute and ask your question. I think he raised his hand by mistake. Mutai Kevin, you can go ahead and ask your question. I also think he does not know he has raised his hand.
I think it was the earlier question that I was asking before.
Okay. I thought you had another question. Someone here is asking, how can they verify the links they are sent on WhatsApp before they open them? Is there a way to verify the link?
Yeah, so there's basic present my screen again. Even before you open a link. If I'm sending you a link, you basically are checking for the following. Just 1 minute as I present this. So yeah, back to this page as we were checking the security of our passwords. This is what you should be typically be looking for. Okay, difference between HTTP and HTTPS. So how secure is your password, the link that has been sent? The omission of the S here means that the link that you've been sent for is not secure. Okay. Inclusion of the S means that then the link is secure. So when the link is sent, normally you can just check at the beginning of the link how secure. When you come to a website, looking at this link, your connection is secure, right? You are securely connected to this site, verified by Amazon. So these are some of the small things you can look at when you are logging into any site. There's always, if I'm not, let me just try and see. I think there's a link I had seen on the chat. I don't know, where is it? Yeah, when you go to the chat section, there is a YouTube link that has been shared by Mr. Simon. So when you look at the first part of that link, you can see it's https colon then / www.youtube blah blah blah. The omission of that S in HTTP means that that link is not secure. Proceed with caution. Okay, those are some of the basics you can check. Any other question?
No, we don't have any other question as of now. We have come to the end of this session. So I'm going to give 30 seconds for all the guys in the chat. If you have a question, kindly unmute and raise it.
I just want to inquire about the firewall for security purposes of filtering the traffic getting into the institution and out. I think we should emphasize on the same. Thank you.
Nigel, did you get the question? He's asking about firewalls.
Okay, what exactly about firewalls? Maybe from a general perspective, it's just one of the measures, to keep your organization safe, or rather your network safe. It's not. Let me. How do I put it? It's not the most. It's not. You should not sit relaxed saying that I have a firewall, my network is secure. But with the firewalls, try and put rules in place to block out sites that may be flagged as malicious. How you can do this, or how you can look at this, is banking Wi-Fi. If you go to a bank, the network is usually separated. There's the public network that you can access as a public user, and what they're using in the bank, from the tellers to the cashiers and whatnot. So with firewalls, try and set up rules of the firewalls, configure the firewall in such a way that it can block off malicious sites. An example is betting websites. Most of these betting websites, sorry for that. Most of these betting websites are not secure. So what you do is block off any betting website or such suspicious, not suspicious, sorry, such sites that are unverified and unsecured from accessing your network by any individual on the network.
Perfect. Someone here has a concern. They're asking, since the government collected the Huduma number data, why shouldn't they just use that data for Maisha? For the Maisha number. What is to prevent them from using that data for Maisha number?
I'm thinking of a way I'll answer this question without incriminating myself. The whole Maisha and Huduma card number is a sensitive topic, especially in the country, because there are so many violations that have already been pointed out by data protection providers or data protection providers. How are they processing this data? How are they using it? How are they storing it? How secure is, because I believe they'll be creating maybe, I don't know, a public portal where you can update your Maisha card or stuff like that. So it is, as it stands, I think that's why the Maisha card was stopped from being rolled out to users, because there are so many loopholes in regards to the data protection.
Okay. Nicely put. Someone else is asking, what measures can we as an organization take if we have an SLA? So this is a service line agreement with the cloud provider. What will happen to the data after the SLA agreement is over, or a breach of the contract? The second part is, what measures should one take after that?
Okay, so you're asking what happens once the service level agreement has come to an end. So for a basic overview, the SLA will just document is an agreement between the service provider and customers, and it outlines what the provider will furnish and defines the services and standards obligated to meet. So at the end of your contract, what are you looking at? What was the original agreement between you and the service provider? You see, if you are told the service provider that this contract is for 3 months, and after 3 months, all our data should be deleted. Have you outlined this in the agreement even before engaging this service provider? Because you cannot start telling me to delete your data yet. At the beginning of the signing of the contract, my terms and conditions were I'll keep your data for 3 years. Okay, so what have you outlined and what have you not outlined within the agreement as when you are starting this partnership with the service provider?
Okay. I think those are all the questions for this session. It's a very interesting session. We cannot cover everything. So I'd like to thank you, Nigel, for such a wonderful presentation. You had good examples. The session was nice. It was relevant. We could relate. You did a commendable job. And to all the attendees, everyone in the chat, we'd like to say thank you for joining us for this webinar. We're going to have another one next weekend, next Wednesday. And to highlight the point I was saying at the start of the webinar, coming Saturday, the Saturday of this week, from 12 to 1, we're going to have a session. It's meant for kids and teens who are in high school as well as in primary school. We're going to be talking about basics of budgeting and how they can start budgeting as early as now. So our appeal to you is, if you have a nephew, niece, a neighbor, maybe young brother or sister, or even your daughter or son, we'd be happy to have them join the webinar. And being the first one, you can also join in with them and see what we talk about. It's the presentation is in a similar function, but it's tailored for kids. So if that is interesting to you, kindly type number one on the chat, and I'll send you a link to. I'll send you a link to join.
Thank you so much for the invite from the capable team, and thank you to all attendees.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So there being no other business, the webinar for today has ended. We're going to send you the PowerPoints. We're going to send them to your emails, and to get your certificate, just the code is 191. We had sent the instruction. The code is 191. So you are at liberty to leave. But for the ones who are interested in the webinar on Saturday, kindly type 1 on the chat. I'm going to send you the link to join. So I've sent the link to. I've put it in the chat for everyone, and I've sent it to Kevin. I'm sending it to Ahmed Nyawa, Atieno Linda, Immaculate. There is the link. Immaculate has left. Please don't leave without having the link. Pauline, we've sent you the link. Alex Karuki, we've sent you the link. For the webinar on Saturday. If you have a question, just unmute and ask. I can see a lot of you in the chat. I'm sending you the links for the webinar on Saturday. Lecturer Mwalimu, there's your link for the webinar on Saturday. Godfrey, there's the link for the webinar on Saturday. Nancy Rotich, there's the link for the webinar on Saturday.